What's up, everybody? Yo, we back. Back with the greasy girl. Greasefang Okiba Boss. Oh, man. I love this because I just get to go back into my decks. You know, I made a Sauron the Necromancer deck. And, sometimes I'll pick and pull pieces from my decks to make the newer decks. And then what I like about Greasefang is it really didn't change much. It just kind of stood like, it's just kind of in its own archetype. I think that's why, like, I had a Thalion and Gitrog monster deck, and I really dismantled it. And it wasn't because it wasn't good; it was very good. It was just that, like that landfall piece. It goes into so many different decks for me, so that like kind of dismantled. But this one is really just focused on vehicles. Really, vehicles and sacrifice is kind of like your mode to victory. And I'd say that Greasefang is actually an aggro deck. For sure. I mean, we can put in some longevity with like Brilliant Restoration and such at our top end, but really this is an aggro deck, I would say, first and foremost. So I have added some new cards that have like caught my eye. I think they're just great. There's some really good ones that even came out of Outlaws Thunder Junction. I don't know if there's any ones that really stood out from Modern Horizons yet. I haven't really dug too deep into that for the vehicles, but I'm sure that we'll find some stuff along the way. So without further ado, let's just look at the deck and then kind of, discuss the archetype. So Greasefang Okiba Boss is an Orzhov commander, 1 colorless, 1 plains, 1 black, legendary creature, rat pilot. At the beginning of combat on your turn, return target vehicle card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, return it to the owner's hand at the beginning of your next end step. So we're just going to kind of start from the bottom. Obviously, we want to protect Greasefang to a degree. So one thing I do want to mention about Greasefang is that 4 power. Most of the vehicles have a 4 crew cost, so that's what makes Greasefang so good, is that the vehicle comes out from your graveyard, and Greasefang can usually crew it and derive the benefit of what it does, like whether it's like an attack trigger or like just dealing like a massive amount of damage, which usually vehicles do. So that 4 power is actually very important. So very reasonable for a 3 costed creature as well. So, and then of course a rat pilot. So like this, like for instance, like some protection, of course. So Skrelv the Deflector Mite is just very good at that one spot. There's another reason why I play like Skrelv over Giver of Runes. It's just kind of a nice little interaction, and I'll demonstrate that in a moment. What's nice about this is it also is an artifact creature, so it kind of works into our artifact kind of archetype as well in our theme. What's nice about Skrelv is that once it's gone through its summoning sickness, you can go ahead and tap this for just paying 2 life. You can pay mana if you want, if you don't want to lose life, but if you want to just pay the life, you can do so. You can choose a color, and then that particular creature will gains Toxic 1 and Hexproof from that color until end of turn. It can't be blocked by creatures of that color this turn as well. Sweet. So you definitely want to do that like pre-combat, or in response to some removal, of course. So there's Skrelv. What I like Skrelv is it's like a really nice like enabler for our Mox Amber. We don't have too many like legendary creatures. We have Oswald Fiddlebender at the 2 spot, but just kind of increasing that opportunity for like a little bit of ramp. And I really don't mind that Greasefang's 3 mana as well, so Mox Amber doesn't look too bad really at all. So I really love Mox Amber here, so that's a nice one for us. Add 1 mana of any color among legendary creatures and planeswalkers you control. Now, just starting out like our vehicle suite, we do play like an abundance of vehicles, both at a lower cost and all the way up to our vehicle bombs. The reasoning why we do this is because we have like a lot of cards that enable vehicles in general, and additionally, like just off the top of my head, like a Surge Hacker mech is just really good if you have other vehicles on the battlefield already, and we really want those Surge Hacker mech interactions to be good and pay off. So Unlicensed Hearse should be fine, and also because we're playing Mesmeric, or we might have to take some things out of like our opponent's graveyards that maybe they'll benefit from, so you have to kind of be aware of that. So I do like the Unlicensed Hearse, and this thing can really grow. It can get really big, If you get it out early enough, it can, become like a 10-10, it can eventually get really strong. So love the Hearse. This is probably like one of the best 2-drops for us because it enables like our combo of putting like a big vehicle into our graveyard on basically it wouldn't be on curve, but like it would be like, you know, it would be like the turn after, and it just kind of sets that up, sets that vehicle gas keep on coming, right? So whenever Smuggler Copter attacks or blocks, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. And it's honestly not the worst like hit either for Greasefang. I mean, we want to hit bigger hits, but you know, just to like kind of keep on getting looks at our graveyard is also very important for us. All right, so also about Smuggler's Copter that I'll mention, and I'll just put that back right here on the screen, is that what's really nice about this one is that you will draw first before discarding. And that's kind of an interesting interaction that maybe you don't see very often. Like, you know, sometimes you say like, well, discard a card, then draw. Or, you know, that's kind of, you know, something that you might see. So, but this one lets you draw first, so that's kind of nice. So you get to see what you're going to draw into. Okay, and then you get to discard. So here's Reckoner Bankbuster. Just another great 2-drop for us. This one actually got banned out of Standard, you know, along with, I think, Fable, the Mirror Breaker. Just gave too much card advantage to like those really mid-rangey kind of value piles. And I mean, it does offer a bunch of cards over time, you know, just for that 2 cost, and you're just putting 2 into it. Once you remove those 3 charge counters on it, which happens each time you draw with it, then you create a treasure and a pilot, and that pilot can crew vehicles as those power 2 greater. So it just becomes like a really nice crewer, like basically can enable the crew of the 3 that it has itself. So we'll create a pilot that will actually crew it. So it's really nice. I love the Bankbuster, and a little bit of ramp is fun too. I love the Mukotai Soul Ripper here. So you can see we have an abundance of 2-drop vehicles. I mean, this one's just very good as well because this one can, on curve, you know, this one could like basically sacrifice a Parhelion back into the graveyard. You know, you could like swing with a Parhelion, make the angels, and then in response sacrifice it with the Mukotai Soul Ripper and put that Parhelion back into the graveyard. So I really love that about the Mukotai Soul Ripper. It's a fantastic card for us. Gives us that sacrifice synergy to keep our gasoline going. Here's the Aerial Surveyor. This one's just a nice one. Like, it'll just allow us to get into those extra lands, you know? Like, we're not going to be playing like an abundance of like land ramp, so we can attack into an opponent that has more lands to us, search up a plains, and put on the battlefield tapped. Great. This is probably like that card where you just read it and you're like, what? Like, how can it do all that for like a 3-costed card? And that is the Peace Walker Colossus. And it's really this exceptional ability here for 1 colorless, 1 plains, another target vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. So basically the vehicles we have on the battlefield that aren't summoning sake, maybe they've been on the battlefield for time, maybe we don't have enough crewers, we can just go ahead and sink this, and they don't have to be crewed at all, they just become creatures. So it's really exceptional, and it's a 6/6 on its own. So these vehicles are just so big, you know. They're just like, yo, bro, like just nasty guys. So here's the Mighty Servant of Luco. This is the 3 colorless artifact vehicle. Trample, ward, discard a card, and whenever Mighty Servant of Luco becomes crewed for the first time each turn, if it was crewed by exactly 2 creatures. It gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw 2 cards until end of turn. There's ways like in which like we could like find ways to, you know, have 2 creatures crew this. I'm not really too concerned about it. You know, it's just also just a 6/6 that can get in. So if we can get some cards off of it from those, you know, crewing off of 2 other creatures, that's fine too. A very threatening card in the Nautiloid ship at our 4 spot. Basically, we'll just exile a player's graveyard upon entering the battlefield. And then when we deal combat damage to player, you may put a creature card exile with Nautiloid ship on the battlefield under your control. So potentially a very dangerous card, especially if our opponents like mid-game have some stuff in their graveyard, which is possible. Here's the Weatherlight. So this one's just another fine choice where, you know, you're going to be going like 5 deep, and then you can put in an artifact, legendary, or saga into your hand. One of those cards that you have looked at. You'd have to reveal it to demonstrate that, to put it in your hand as well. So that's a crew 3. It's a nice flyer. This one's another one I just kind of just put in there. I think it's fine because it's just kind of exactly what we want to do. Like the land is fine that it creates. I think that's really the big pull of it. So this card attacks, right? So obviously we don't really want to, I mean, to cast this would probably not be as strong. To have it kind of looped out with Greasefang would be much better, right? What I really like about this is that 2 tap, draw a card, then discard a card. That seems really good. That seems really, really good for us because that's kind of what we're all about, is kind of keeping our graveyard fresh and having like lots of vehicles in there, and having that kind of selection is really nice, and that's all what we're about for this deck. This is probably like the most awesome like Greasefang vehicle payoff. Not only is it very castable at the 4 spot, but this thing coming down hasted is really strong. I mean, even that, like if we're on curve with a Smuggler's Buggy on turn 3 with a Greasefang, we can go ahead and hide away and, you know, swing into an open opponent, have the buggy deal combat damage, and then we can just play that card for free. So, I mean, we have some pretty big bombs in here. We have some really big vehicles in this deck. I mean, when you hide away, and, you know, for 4, I mean, it could be a land. It could be anything, really. It could be anything useful for us. And we just kind of, we just put it on the battlefield. I mean, so it's pretty awesome. So there's a Smuggler's Buggy. This one's also an interesting one too. Like, kind of puts your opponents in a bad spot because we have so many ways to sacrifice creatures in this deck. The opponent would always have to be wondering, like, are they going to be able to sacrifice my guy? So it's probably always in their best interest just to like sacrifice the creature. You know, whenever this, you know, Midnight Crusader shuttle is going to be swinging, probably they're just going to want to face that villainous choice and sacrifice that creature. You know, otherwise they might give it to us, gamble with it, and we might get value off of it, you know, through sacrifice. So kind of a nasty one there as well. It's from the Doctor Who set. There's some really nice vehicles in the Doctor Who set, by the way. So I did have like, you know, one of the, you know, mech kind of higher costed, you know, vehicles in this deck. It's like at the 7 spot, and it's just, you know, I found a replacement for that. And I also think this is also another fit. I basically did a video where I looked at like most of the vehicles in like on our Orzhov colors that we had available. And this one definitely stood out, and it still does. The fact that this thing just kind of comes on the battlefield and draws gas, just draws you a card, I think is fine. It really seems fine. You know, and I think it's better than like playing like vanilla 7/7 that, you know, just tramples over stuff. This is still a 5/5 and it draws a card. So that's better. So, and it's castable. Like if I have something in my hand and it's stuck in there, it's no good. So that's the kind of thing about Greasefang, is like you're kind of balancing what is castable versus like your mega bombs, you know? And I think I actually probably still have that 7 costed vehicle in here too. I think my priority is the vehicles, to be honest. So it's vehicles first and then all the other cards next. So that's also what I've learned about this deck as well. Okay, so there's a Surge Hacker Mech, absolutely fantastic. This thing just gets real nasty. You can have it kind of come over and over and like keep re-looping it and taking out everybody's creatures. It's really nasty, and it's just a good threat. It has Menace, it's a 5/5. This was the one I thought was like a nice replacement, you know, for like a 7-drop, for instance, that, you know, is harder to cast, you know, more dependent on getting to our graveyard. This one's less dependent on getting on our graveyard. It's 5 costed, and it's still like really does the damage, you know. So this is the Aradara Express at the 5 spot. Once again, if it just comes down the Greasefang, it's just 8 damage to someone's face, basically, because of the Menace. So, you know, no one's really going to want to block an 8/6 unless they're like really got some big baddies out there. I love the Limo because it just kind of gives you that kind of selection. You can, you know, decide what you want to do. Like, do you want to like maybe take in one of your cards? Do you want to eat some tokens? Do you want to just, you know, have it enter the battlefield and not take anything and then crew it and then take something upon attacking? So that's kind of like your idea, and that's kind of up to you to decide. So I really like the Limo a lot. I think it's fantastic. So there's that. Here's the Sky Sovereign. Also just a very nicely positioned card for us. Would love to hit this in an early part of the game for Greasefang, because I could probably deal 6 to something, or deal 3 to something and then deal 3 to something else, and really kind of put that, that advantage on the battlefield. Take out some mana dorks, for instance, take out a creature or a commander, whatever it is. So that's Sky Sovereign, a lot of pressure. So we like that word, pressure. So here's Night Paladin, and this is that 5 colorless artifact vehicle. It has trample as well. And rapid fire battle cannon. When Night Paladin enters the battlefield, it does 4 damage to each opponent. So that sounds like a fun thing to eat with your mysterious limousine. That sounds like a fun one. Maybe just, it only has a crew 1, so probably could crew this up and have our limo enter and eat it, and then attack with the limo, have it come back and deal the 4 to everybody, and have the limo eat something else on the way through. So I love it. What a low crew cost. Who knows why? I just don't know why, but it is. It is what it is, I guess. This is another one. I believe, guys. I think I thought this one over, and I was like, man, I don't know if this is going to work very well. How I see this card working for us is it would have to be early, right? And I feel like it would be very good early, because if we can get this early, we could have it enter the battlefield, crew the steamboat with another creature of ours or Greasefang in response, have this thing come out, and then basically swing on an opponent that had a creature or 2 creatures on the battlefield and have them lose one of them, and this just pops back to our hand and everything pops back onto the battlefield. I mean, we'd be weary about enter the battlefield triggers for creatures, but I think in the early game this would be very good. So we'll try it out. Here is the Thunderhawk gunship. And this one's just another great vehicle that enters the battlefield, and then we create those 2/2 white Astari's warrior creature tokens with vigilance. And then when we attack with this thing, all our creatures gain flying until end of turn. It's a good finisher. And what an appropriate, it's like I don't know, have you guys gotten across a Moonshaker Cavalry? I mean, that card is, it can be great, but this card is kind of similar to that, where it's making some tokens here, some power on the battlefield, and giving all our creatures flying at once seems very reasonable. All the cards here, this is also a very reasonable deck. You get to do things that are very reasonable and good and powerful. So that's what's also nice. This is a new one from the Fallout series. So you had the Pride win another 6/6 flying bomb. And once again, another non-token artifact enters the battlefield under your control with another one. So maybe it's something at the end of our turn, right? Create a 2/2 white human knight creature token with its creature gets 2/2 as long as an artifact enters the battlefield under your control this turn. Fantastic, easy peasy, right? Just making more tokens and just being scary in the air. Here's an 8/8 cyber ship. Artifact vehicle flying. Whenever cyber ship deals combat damage to a player, put the top 2 cards of that player's library onto the battlefield. Face down under your control, they're 2/2 Cyberman artifact creatures. Once again, this is a flyer. You're probably going to get in. You're probably going to get that value of making these Cyberman artifact creatures. It's an 8/8. It's really nasty. So now we're coming to the cards that are a little more expensive, maybe harder to cast on their own, right? So these are the cards that are bombs that they're kind of musts, must hits to really get our ball rolling to finish these games up. So Reaver Titan is just, that I'd say between this and Parhelion, they're very equal. And it just depends on what kind of mood you're in. Do you want to have to start swinging on your opponent, taking 10 damage, and each of your opponents is going to take 5 as well at the time? It's very strong. It has protection from mounting value 3 or less. So you get this thing going with the Greasefang pretty early, and it's basically doing 25 damage on a cycle. So it's really strong. It's so good. So it's definitely an avenue for success with the Reaver Titan. This one's also nice too. Perhaps maybe you don't feel like you have enough gasoline to support a Reaver Titan. Maybe you don't have things, maybe you had an Entomb, but you didn't have ways to recur it back into the graveyard, after the fact efficiently. So maybe you go for a Necron Monolith instead, where you swing with this and then you mill 3, so you give yourself a chance for some more vehicles in the graveyard. You'll also create, for each creature milled that way, create a 2/2 black Necron Warrior artifact creature token. We have a few creatures in here, so it's possible. But really just getting those mills are valuable. And of course, the OG himself, the Parhelion 2. It's like a bastion in the clouds, guys. Look at you can see like the symbol there, the fist. So very interesting, card in general. And what it does is that it just basically pops onto the battlefield, and when it attacks, create 2/4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance that are also attacking. So maybe a little less damage than an actual Reaver Titan. If we like do the math, this can do like about, 13 damage in the air in a cycle. The thing about this though is it's going to create angels that stick, right? So you get the angels and they stick around and they continue to be a board presence and put pressure on your opponents. So that is the difference, right? And it's also legendary. So that's also kind of like an interesting aspect of that Parhelion card. But I don't know if there would exactly be anything too. I mean, if we had like a Ratted Drabic, that'd be kind of cool to like destroy it and then have a copy of a Parhelion. But I did take the Ratted Drabic out. Okay, so now we just have like our kind of vehicle payoffs here. So this is just cards that are just gonna like help, give us this advantage. Like for instance, Okabe Reckoner Raid has like that nice incremental value of losing life and gaining 1 life for your opponents and yourself. And then this thing becomes like a 2/2 vehicle itself. And it gives all your vehicles menace. So that's a really good like payoff for us guys. Having our vehicles have menace, like all of them, is just like exceptional. So that is like a tier 1 card. It's just a 1-drop. It's fantastic for us. Here is the Strionic Resonator. This is what everybody has suggested for me on the chat comments. So, I mean, I feel like it's very good at that 2 spot too, so this would be a nice one to like copy the Greasefang's ability, the triggered ability at the beginning of the combat, and getting 2 vehicles out at once would be kind of nice, right? So there's a Strionic Resonator. So that's a 2 artifact, pay 2 and a tap, copy target artifact triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Fantastic. This guy's just a menace, right? This is like a Weatherlight on a stick, where you can even attack with this if you're attacking him with a vehicle. It won't take any combat damage, so that's nice. And then when this thing becomes tapped, you get to look 6 deep, and you can cast a vehicle or artifact creature spell from among them, then put the bottom of the library in any order. It's fantastic. So there's Sandwell. What a great card. Here's Oswald. So this is like another one of our legendaries. This one's a legendary too. So we see we have some good Mox Amber support here, with Sandwell, Oswald, and Skrell at that bottom end. I just love it. So here's Oswald Fiddlebender. And this one is the one that's like a sacrifice outlet for our vehicles, which is nice to put them back in our graveyard. And then we can really like get into something nasty, right? So, for instance, if we sacrifice a Necron Monolith, then we can go right into our Parhelion. So that would be a nice payoff for us, right? So Oswald is good, and the fact that you can kind of get into like higher, like do it as a toolbox, like find more artifacts that you need or vehicles. That's what's nice about Oswald. He does he does like 2 things for us, right? He puts things back in our graveyard and lets us look for other things and replace them that are bigger, and they stick. So that's great. Here is our kind of like our major avenue for putting things into our graveyard selectively to make sure we have like those Parhelions and Reaver Titans or Necron Monoliths in our graveyard immediately. That Entomb effect, right? Search your library for a card, then put that card in your graveyard, then shuffle your library. And it's an instant, so we can really surprise our opponents. We do have like another avenue for that. These are very similar. The Unmarked Grave will just kind of do something very similar, right? So search your library for a non-legendary card, put that card into your graveyard, then shuffle. So this would have to be non-legendary though for the Unmarked Grave. Okay, fine, right? Very good. So we have our tutors there, basically graveyard tutors. And then there's other ways for us to put in things into our graveyard selectively from our hand. So these are really nice too, like a Bone Shards, where we can go ahead and destroy a creature, discard like a vehicle. So it's like another benefit. It's just having that selection, whether like it's in our hand already, right, for the Bone Shards. Similarly, a Bitter Triumph does the same thing. Maybe it's already in our hand, you know? So maybe that vehicle's already in our hand, and this is just a way to get it out to the graveyard and destroy another creature or planeswalker in the process. These both destroy target creatures or planeswalkers, so they're very versatile. Also, additionally, we can also put things into our deck selectively by just putting an abundance of, like, say, lands in our hand. And that's what land tax could do. So if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search your library for up to 3 basic land cards, reveal them, put it in your hand. If you do, shuffle your library. So this would just be another way to, like, maximize our hand size past 7, and then all of a sudden we can put some vehicles in the graveyard and still hit our land drops and be very happy. So we love land tax. And here's more like selectivity from our hand. So selectivity is good because with Greasefang, the vehicles pop back to your hand that have been summoned from the graveyard. So we can keep that cycle going with, like, for instance, a Putrid Imp or a Fleeting Spirit. All of these are exceptional. Guardian of New Benalia, they all do the same thing. They all discard cards freely from your hand. And they don't have terrible benefits. They're all very good crewers, right? Like, even like the Fleeting Spirit. Fleeting Spirit and Season Hollowblade, they're great crewers, 3 power creatures. Stitcher Supplier, these are, now we're getting to the way that's like incidental mill. So we have a chance, right? So this will give us a chance. We don't really know what's going to go in the graveyard, but stuff will. And maybe there will be vehicles, right? So there's the Stitcher Supplier. When it enters the battlefield or dies, mill 3 cards. Fantastic. Shriekhorn, this can get about like 6 cards into your graveyard through a couple cycles, which is fine at the 1 cost for us. Egon of Death will turn into the Throne for that 1 cost, and we'll just go ahead and turn this over real quick. You can kind of see what's going on. Basically, it becomes this card for 1 mana, and that's primarily what we'll use it for. At the beginning of our upkeep, mill a card, and then we can also get some cards out of our graveyard too by exiling a creature by paying 3 and a tap, so it's fantastic. So there is the Throne of Death. So there's that. Here's the Mesmeric Orb. This is just another nasty card that just puts a ton of cards into our graveyard, and it will do so for everybody too. So it kind of like helps them in some ways, but we hope that it will benefit us more. This one's a nice dredge card, right? The Stinkwood Imp. So whenever we would draw a card, instead we could just dredge 5. Dredge 5. Dredge 5. We could dredge 5 cards. We could really juice up our graveyard. Instead of drawing, we could just put more cards in our graveyard, as long as this thing is in the graveyard. So that's a really fun interaction. Yeah, we could just figure out more ways to put stuff in our grave. This more incidental, milling, Timberite Calls the Dead, just juicing up our graveyard. 3 for each chapter. It could also create zombies by exiling an enchantment or a creature from that pile. Here's Luris, and that could like find us that Strionic Resonator, This could be the difference. We could be juicing up our graveyard, and then we can get value. We could even get a Sandwell, get a Mox Amber, like whatever the heck we want to get with the Luris. This thing is just a graveyard master, right? One of those other banned cards that luckily we play in a format where anything kind of goes. So, this is it. So we're going to be doing Luris, right? Here is a Teleportation Circle. This one's a nice one. I'm really scared of this card when I play against it, guys. Like, I feel like maybe I haven't won a game against someone who's played a Teleportation Circle. And I'll be honest, like, maybe never. Like, this card is just probably cracked. The fact that we can get our vehicles, bigger vehicles, to stick around, like our Parhelion to stick or our Reaver Titan, this card is just, that's what this is. The Teleportation Circle is what it's all about. So we love that. Can have our vehicles stick around, which sounds nice too. Here's Brilliant Resto. Mega mana value cost, but we're going to be having some nasty graveyards, I'm telling you. We put so many cards in there, so this is going to look better than any other card, like, come that time when it is castable. Okay, and just some nice ways to like kind of sacrifice some stuff, right? And get some value out of it, because we might not always want to like keep looping things. We might actually want to like, get value off of them. And this could be the way, like, through Village Rites, sacrifice. And it could even help in early game sequencing where maybe we have a Parhelion that came down and we don't have ways to kind of get it back in the yard, but we do have Village Rites available, and then all of a sudden we keep our loop going, which is really good for us. So there's a Village Rites. Also, Viscera Seer does a very similar thing where it's just always ready. It's like, yo, Let me sacrifice your vehicle and let's get it back in there so we can keep this train going. Fantastic. Diabolic intent. Let's go tutor for something. Let's sacrifice one of our vehicles that we need to get it back in there and go find something that we really need. Here's Yogg, just an absolute master of, you know, sacrificing stuff and drawing for it. Fantastic. Rankles is probably our nastiest card in here. The fact that this thing just starts getting in there and we're sacrificing and discarding, we don't care. And, you know, we can even group hug everybody. You know, let's all draw. Who cares? It's just, we can do all the modes at once. We can just like really start going with a Rankle. You know, it's just fantastic. Here's Braids. Just one of those cards that really starts accumulating because it has that for each opponent, you know, verbiage. So, you know, you can sacrifice your vehicle. If people don't have artifacts, then they're losing 2 life and you're drawing a card from each of them. So there you go. Deadly Dispute, a little bit of Rampage. So we get into our sacrifice and our ramp package. Really don't have too much ramp in here, guys, to be honest. I have like, you know, a couple mana rocks. I don't really think it's really that high of a preference. I don't have to get to a high curve. I just need to get to Greasefang, you know? So I'm feeling like a Talisman of Hierarchy is fine, Signet is fine, and a Soul Ring. I really don't know if I have to do too much. I mean, we have Deadly Dispute, and we'll have the land, I think it's called Phyrexian Altar or something like that nature. We'll get to that. But I do play a lot of good removal, you know, like I have like the Meat Hood Massacre. You kind of use that how we desire. You can use it as a mass board wipe or selective board wipe. And then we'll start accruing that value when our creatures are dying, that our opponents are losing life, right? So that's nice. Then we have Rite of Oblivion. That's nice, like graveyard value, right? So if we mill it, we can still use it later for its flashback costs. Also sacrifice our vehicles, get them back in our yard, and then we get to exile something. So it's nice. Here's Toxic D, just the D, the super D. Breaks parity with a lot of things, you know, kind of screws over mono white, you know, token decks and such. So it really sets them back. So there's a Toxic Deluge. Oh my God, this card, this is the one I added, guys. Oh my God, it's so disgusting. Grave Pact. Whenever a creature you control dies, each other player sacrifices a creature. It's just, shouldn't be existing. It's such a nasty card, but there it is. So that's one of the newer cards I got into, was the Grave Pact. Here's Blood on the Snow. Here's the Phyrexian Tower. That's like kind of a decent source of ramp for us, where we're sacrificing a creature and adding 2 black. That's nice. And then we have other ways to sacrifice our creatures through our lands, like a High Market, another fantastic one for us here. Malika Rebirth to like resurrect our stuff if we need to do it. Seems good to me. I have Mech Hanger here. That's also a nice one. We'll just basically turn one of our vehicles into a creature until end of turn for a 3 and a tap. And we can also just use this as a dual land for Greasefang because it will cast pilots for any color or add colorless. Takanuma just to kind of keep that graveyard gas train going. Or act as a land. Here's this one that will kind of get some creatures back into our play. You know, if we have, you know, maybe Allurus and a couple other creatures, and then we can Agademe and kind of get them going for a turn. This is a new card for us, guys. So this is one of the ones that I'll definitely have to highlight there. I mean, I love this card. It seems exactly what we want to do for Greasefang, where we'll have a lot of artifacts in play. You know, we really will. And then it also discards a card for us, which we really want to do. We want to put cards into the graveyard. And then we can like basically look at the top X cards of our library and put one of those cards in our hand based on the amount of artifacts we have. It's fantastic. And it's a land. Here's Urza Saga, just one of those other awesome, you know, land cards that just going to be like the cat's meow for us, you know? You know, find that Soul Ring, you know, let's get into it. Let's get into some of our, you know, nice little 0 or 1 artifacts and kind of get those going. So, yeah, I love the Urza Saga. Good acceleration for us. Here's Amiria's Call, you know, just that nice, you know, angel payoff. I could also act as a land. Hagra Mauling for removal. This is just a perfect black card that also acts as a land. I think there's a new MH3 card that does something similar. Similar. And it might only be like 3 mana. And I'll have to look at that because there's just a lot of really good multi-phase land cards that came out in that set. Here's the castle, so we can just draw some cards when we get low with our land. And then the rest are just kind of duels, you know, just some nice duels here. A wide variety of them, so they're all here. I think, just want to make sure I didn't have any duplicates, you know. But yeah, and then we got some snow-covered lands here. I think about 7 each, 7, 7, 7. And that's the Greasefang, guys. I know this is your favorite deck, and I know why. Because it's very it's very strong and it's very unique. And I think what happens is like people, they see like this vehicle deck and they're like, oh, I didn't know like vehicles were so consistent. Like they really are. They're really something, huh? And there's some really decent ones, and Greasefang's a great like conduit for that. So I hope you enjoyed the kind of deck tech. Some of the newer cards that, like the Fomori Vault seems very cool. A new card for me, of course. I know maybe not new for some of you, but like Grave Pact is kind of like within the last month I've kind of found out about this card, and it's just like, it's just the nastiest thing. It really is hard for opponents to keep things on their battlefield, creatures on the battlefield, because you're just sacrificing your things, and then you have to sacrifice too. And you know, you want to sacrifice things, and sometimes they don't. Especially like those red and green decks, you know, sometimes they don't. Their creatures have so much value that they can't keep up with that kind of stuff. You know, unless they're making like lots of tokens. So we have a very strong mono, you know, I guess Orzhov, it plays Orzhov, of course, it has Orzhov cards, but you know, it has like a lot of traits that are like very conducive to like black decks, right? Just kind of like that kind of suffocating like removal and pressure. Really takes over the board. Really not conducive for players who want to put stuff on the board. So, and we're just gonna like try to aggro them with Reaver Titans and Parhelion Angels. So yo, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you stick around this long, let me know in the comments how much what else do you guys like. I mean, I'm willing to try anything. So, you know, I love playing Magic. So let me know what you guys are playing right now. Bye-bye.